Welcome back to the channel and to today's video, and it's a critical one. We're going to dive into this overall cultural battle, and specifically in this video, going to shine the light on this war on men. When I was in the Navy a long time ago, there was a clear code of ethics: honor, honesty, integrity, and courage. And I believe as a man, as a husband, a father, a leader, these are the very foundations upon which your character should be built. I've been researching this, digging into the statistics, reading the experts, and what I've found, it's not just concerning, it's pretty heartbreaking. It's a crisis that affects every single one of us. Whether we're men ourselves or we have sons, brothers, husbands, or fathers in our lives, this is about the mental health of our young men, the stability of our workforce, the very future of our society. It's about the silent despair that is crippling millions right now in the West. And here's what I know. There is a real, undeniable threat to men emerging from societal structures and norms that are putting immense destructive pressure on them. It's an attack that manifests in many ways. The breakdown of the family unit, the rise of fatherless homes, and woke ideologies embedded in our education system, and most disturbing when it comes to young men, through the very technology we use every day. And so if you're a young man watching this and you feel lost, defeated, devalued, this video is for you. If you're raising young men, this video is for you. If you're married to a man and want to know what he is facing, this video is also for you. But equally as important, if you are just concerned with the future of our society, this video is for you. Now quickly, many viewers might say, Brodie, what exactly is the war against men in today's world? Well, here's a quick summary, right, of where our men sit in today's society. They are told it's dangerous to operate in their masculinity. They are addicted to pornography at unprecedented levels. They are weakened through the breakdown of traditional roles in marriages and families, and they are committing suicides at the highest rate in modern history. So our souls, our mind, spirituality, and physical presence are under attack. And the reason this is important to identify, educate, and rectify is because weak, broken, and feminized men don't build communities, families, and nations. What kind of future are we building if we allow half of our population, our men, to be systematically undermined and disengaged? What kind of legacy will we leave our sons if we don't equip them to understand and fight back against this onslaught? So there's a little taste of what today's video will speak to. Now, before we dive in, really quickly, I've got to say it, guys, I'm trying to grow the channel. Here's something I find really interesting, right? Almost 84% of you who are tuning into our videos regularly are not yet subscribed. Some of you don't even realize you're not subscribed. So if you like what we're doing, if you've gotten some value from our content, or maybe you're here for the first time, if you like it so far, could I ask you to please find the subscribe button somewhere on the page or via a link in the description and hit it for me. I would really appreciate that if you could. Now, the official line, the narrative you'll hear from the media or government, and within academic circles, goes something like this. Any struggles men face today are a natural evolution towards a more equal society. They'll tell you it's about breaking free from toxic masculinity, dismantling oppressive patriarchal structures, and achieving gender equilibrium. They'll frame it as men adapting to a modern world where traditional roles are outdated, where strength is often labeled as aggression and assertiveness as problematic. Now, this narrative celebrates the idea that men and women are interchangeable, that traditional male attributes are relics of the past that need to be shed for the sake of progress, liberation, and individual choice. They'll tell you that men who feel lost or without purpose are simply failing to adapt to a new, more enlightened era. This is what they say is progress. But here's the thing, as we've learned time and time again through this show, what they say and what's actually happening are quite often two very different things. The real questions we need to ask are, at what cost is this progress coming? And what are the hidden implications of this relentless reframing of masculinity? Because as uncomfortable as the truth might be for woke progressives, while they harp on about liberation, millions of men are experiencing profound loneliness, brokenness, and a devastating lack of purpose. And here's where I would like to talk, just directly to anyone watching that categorically disagrees with my values. I know there's plenty of them, right? If you knew it to be true that men are in fact right now, as a result of this modern world progression, they're broken, weak, and struggling, what would you do? Would you think we should fix it? Or would you continue on the path that the things you support has got us on? Owen Strachan, in his crucial book, The War on Men, Why Society Hates Them and Why We Need Them, he argues that what we're seeing is nothing less than a dual-headed cultural assault on biblical masculinity. He says that feminism and wokeness have accomplished nothing less than a destabilization of civilization. This isn't just about evolving social norms. This is a deliberate, systemic campaign. Now, Brenda Hefera from the Heritage Foundation echoes this, pointing out that many boys and men are struggling to flourish in their roles as sons, students, employees, and fathers, and to achieve the sense of purpose that comes from being rooted within marriages, communities, churches, and country. This isn't a benign societal shift either. This is a profound, progressive reshaping of what it means to be a man and what a man's purpose should be. And this reshaping is coming at a tremendous cost, not just to men, but to everyone around them. It's become abundantly clear that if you continue to diminish and therefore weaken the role of men, you wind up weakening society as a whole. So the primary driver of what many researchers call the boy crisis is the absence of fathers. This is where we start. We talk about this in our video, The War on Family, which is coming, but it bears repeating and expanding upon here, particularly through the lens of how it impacts boys and men directly. Today in the US, approximately 40% of children are born out of wedlock. And in Australia, that number is slightly better at 37%. Now, you might be thinking, well, not everyone gets married, right? So what's the issue? Well, the implications of that statistic are much worse in light of research from back in 2007 by Osborne, Manning, and Stock. That suggested 7 in 10 children of cohabitating couples will experience parental separation. So think about that for a second. 7 out of every 10 children born to unmarried couples will end up living with only one of their biological parents. And the statistics suggest that in the majority of these cases, kids end up living with their mother. And as a tick of approval to those waiting till marriage to move in together and start a family, the dissolution rate of cohabitating couples is 4 times higher than married couples who did not cohabitate before marriage. It's from Osborne, Manning, and Stock in 2007. Now, what this means is a staggering number of children today end up growing without their biological father in the home, a trend that has profound and lasting consequences. But why is absent fathers a real problem? There are plenty of capable single mums out there doing an incredible job, right? And I'm not debating that, so hear my heart on this. But here's the truth. Warren Farrell and John Gray, in their essential work, The Boy Crisis, they provide a robust account of the unique contributions of fathers. It's incredible. They highlight how a dad's presence impacts many areas in the children's life, including scholastic achievement, verbal intelligence, quantitative abilities, and even the development of truth and empathy in children. The effects of dad being absent are immediate and far-reaching, extending from the development of children's brains to their very life expectancy. For example, this is wild. In 2017, a study published in Pediatrics by Mitchell and colleagues found that children who lose their fathers exhibit shorter telomere lengths, a sign of increased biological stress, right? And an early indicator of lower life expectancy. They pointed out that while telomeres, which are the caps of the ends of our chromosomes that protect our genes, and they shorten with age, children who experience father loss through divorce, separation, death, or incarceration have telomeres that are 14% shorter by age 9. But here's the really crucial part. For boys, the telomere damage from father loss is up to 40% greater than that of girls of the same age, right? So this isn't just about emotional absence. It's physically harming boys at a cellular level. Sounds wild, right? And these boys then grow up into young men, or they try to, and they remain at a serious disadvantage. So consider the role of a dad. Dads especially tend to engage in a more active, rough and tumble type play, right? It's not frivolous, it's essential for childhood development. It permits the young brain to remain flexible, helping to regulate and channel impulses, teaching children the confines of their own bodies. The developmental benefits include enhanced physical fitness and improved cognitive, emotional, and social function. Simply put, dads, wrestle with your sons. It's good for them. Strikingly, right, mammals deprived of play won't develop to their full capacity. Boys particularly can be active, aggressive, impulsive, and adventurous. Play is a means of properly directing these instincts. It strengthens the bond between father and child. And fathers play a particular important role in developing a child's openness to the world. They excite, surprise, and momentarily kind of destabilize children, encouraging them to risk while ensuring safety, helping them to learn to be braver in unfamiliar situations and to stand up for themselves. With all that being said, now imagine taking the father away. It's damaging. And this is not to diminish the indispensable role of mothers. It's a whole other video on that. But to highlight the unique balancing role of fathers. We are bodily creatures, and boys learn how to become good men by observing and imitating a good man, hopefully their father. Strachan also empathizes that God calls men to be strong for women and children, never against them. That's the heart of biblical equality. Now, when this foundational structure is eroded, when fathers are absent or actively devalued, the impact on boys is devastating. They lose the primary mentor who teaches them how to navigate the world, how to channel their natural impulses, how to become responsible, virtuous men. Now, single mothers making immense sacrifices often struggle to find male relatives or community figures to fill this crucial role. This dad deprivation is the central thread running through the entire boy crisis, fundamentally undermining their unique design from the earliest years. Now, let's say you get through childhood as a young boy and you're blessed enough to have had a dad around. So well beyond the physical absence of fathers, there's a powerful, persuasive cultural narrative now that actively demonizes masculinity itself. This is where the concepts of, toxic masculinity, feminism, and woke ideology launch their relentless assault against men. Strachan pulls no punches again, stating that feminism, paganism, and godless wokeness have attacked strong manhood relentlessly for decades now. These evil ideologies have had a ferocious effect on the home, the church, and society. They've weakened men to breaking point. He cites radical feminists like Mary Daly, who once said chillingly that if life is to survive on this planet, there must be a drastic reduction of the population of males. Make that make sense. Or Robin Morgan, editor for Miss Magazine, who proudly declared once that I feel that man-hating is an honourable and viable political act. And these aren't really fringe ideas anymore. I've heard many people talk to me about how they are raising boys, and some of it blows my mind. These ideas of feminizing boys and hating the identity of masculinity, it's seeped into our mainstream. Boys and men are constantly told they are toxic simply for exhibiting traditional masculine traits like assertiveness, strength, or competitiveness. Our culture reads strong men as the major problem confronting us today. As Strachan rightly concludes in his book, it has effectively declared war on men. Now, another writer, Brenda Hafera, highlights the insidious role of expressive individualism in this crisis, right? This is the key. Stay with me. This is the toxic notion that promotes radical autonomy, replacing the embodied relational person, the man connected to family and human nature, with an isolated psychological self who constructs his own morality. It's a radical turn away from objective truth towards a dangerous, self-centered subjectivity. Now, Strachan identifies 4 deficient archetypes of men created by this current cultural climate. I'm going to break them down for you quickly now. Here we go. So there's the soft man, right? This is the one who yields to the strong woman and takes cues from her. This is the man devoid of all initiative, all leadership, passively conforming. Then there's the exaggerated man, the Andrew Tate type figure, right, who embraces almost like a cartoonish manhood. This is a reaction, an overcompensation, often an unhealthy distortion, yet it's what many desperate young men are drawn to in a vacuum of authentic and godly male role models. Then there's the lost man. He leaves his family and opts out of any meaningful involvement in society. He's weak. This is the man retreating to his mother's basement. He's disengaged, devoid of purpose. Then there's the angry man who, as an exercise in vengeance, perverts his God-given strength for evil, like a school shooter, right? This is the tragic outcome when natural male energy and strength, demonized and unchanneled, explodes in destructive ways. Now, these archetypes are not created in a vacuum, but are the direct result of anti-male cultural climate, right, set up to undermine boys from a young age and turn them into emasculated adults. This approach is systemic and it's proving to have devastating effects. Our culture fails to recognize that by telling men they are toxic, it fosters the very depravity it claims to oppose. And this profound shift in societal values, this deliberate reshaping of masculinity, is truly destabilizing our very own civilization. Now let's talk about how our institutions are actively undermining men, particularly our education system and the changing economic landscape. For decades now, our schools have been failing boys. So Christina Hoff Sommers in The War Against Boys, she drew attention to this over 20 years ago. Boys are falling behind academically. Why? Because on average, boys tend to have more energy than girls. It's difficult for them to sit still for long periods. They're often less organized and they frustrate teachers who then factor behavior into their grading. So boys get suspended at a much higher rate. And here's a critical point. They're on average, they receive harsher exclusionary discipline than girls for the same behaviors. Think about that. The same behavior gets a boy a harsher punishment. Now, part of the problem, as Richard Reeves points out in Our Boys and Men, is biological. The parts of the brain associated with impulse control, planning, future orientation, they mature about 2 years later in boys than in girls. And this means many boys fall behind early, particularly in reading and verbal skills, which are crucial for college attendance and economic stability. And they struggle to make up ground. And some simply just check out entirely. And add to that the trend in schools towards many more teachers being women these days. And while admirable, when combined with the pervasive ideology that men and women are essentially interchangeable, it creates a system where boys are treated the exact same as their female classmates. They're expected to act the same, learn the same things, and at the same pace. And despite fundamental biological and developmental differences, instead of adapting education to boys' needs and girls' needs, we're increasingly just medicating them. So 1 in 5 young men have been diagnosed with ADHD, and 30 to 50% of adolescents in drug rehab have all used Ritalin. It's not a solution. It's a symptom of a system that is fundamentally ill-equipped to raise boys to become strong and capable men. This progressive style of education argues that children should direct their own educational trajectory. As Christina Hoff Sommers writes, this approach has taught children that they are their own best guides in life, leading to a moral deregulation that directly correlates with a rise in conduct disorders among boys. So this dismissal of the importance of the body, the emphasis on passive learning over kinetic activity and free play, actively harms boys' physical, emotional, and cognitive development. If we want to see lasting change for the next generation, surely we can encourage leading educators and policymakers to start evaluating their flawed approach. I don't think they care though. But when the academic merit is really the only measure of success in a schooling system, then bringing it to their attention is pretty fruitless. And this is the very reason we ended up taking our kids out of school and now homeschool them, among other reasons. The next place we see this anti-male attitude showing up is in the workforce. This is alarming. This is where things actually got pretty concerning. So right now, over 7 million men between the ages of 25 and 55 have just completely stepped out of the workforce. So most of them don't have a college education. They've simply just given up on working. So to put that in perspective, the number of men working today is about the same as it was during the Great Depression. Let that sink in, right? 7 million men in their prime years disengaged. That's not a small issue. It's a quiet crisis that's tearing apart the backbone of society because those men build a society and they're not there. Another aspect affecting men in the workforce is the American economy has also shifted, dramatically from manufacturing to a global knowledge economy in the last decade. Also here in Australia and New Zealand and Europe. So traditional male-dominated jobs have disappeared or drastically reduced due to technology, automation, or being shipped overseas. So men who excel at physical work now have fewer opportunities. Our military, which was once a haven for men like that, is slowly changing and it's becoming less accessible. These economic shifts are creating job deserts in communities that once thrived on physical labor. So many men trapped in these areas, or those who simply lack the specific skills demanded by the new economy, become reliant on disability payments or go back to live with family members. Now, disability insurance itself can create perverse incentives where this is wild, right? Where qualifying for benefits becomes a more viable option than re-entering a seemingly inaccessible job market. The consequences are dire. Men without work often become dejected and listless, leading to profound despair. This brings me to a pretty chilling statistic. In the United States, suicide, it's also high in Australia, right? But in the United States, suicide is the second leading cause of death for men under 45 years old. Think about the scale of that human tragedy. Our men, our brothers, fathers, sons, are struggling with a profound lack of purpose and hope, driven to such despair that they are taking their own lives at an alarming rate. The deaths of despair crisis, as it's sometimes called, is concentrated among less educated middle-aged Americans, rooted in the steady deterioration of job opportunities and a sense of being useless and unwanted. The opioid crisis too has disproportionately affected men, with men accounting for almost 70% of overdose deaths. This is a vicious cycle, where a failing education system feeds a disengaging economy, leaving millions of men without purpose and, tragically, without hope. Finally, let's talk about the silent destroyer creeping into so many homes and minds: technology. We've talked about how the architecture of convenience becomes the architecture of control, right? With digital IDs. I do touch on the porn epidemic in the other War on Family video. Encourage you to watch that after this one. But the same insidious creep is at play in our relationships, our mental health, and our very sense of self. So Brenda Hafera again points out that not all screens are created equal, but all screen time is detrimental insofar as it removes individuals from the real world. It promotes the expressive individualism, the tenet, right, that we are disembodied selves. We think about the staggering amount of time men not in the workforce are spending in front of screens. An average of 6 hours a day watching television and movies. This isn't just passive entertainment. It's like withdrawal from real life, a numbing mechanism that replaces productive engagement. Video games have become more engaging and addictive, consuming hours that could be spent building physical strength, psychological resilience, and social competence. Think back, ask yourself, did your father ever play video games? But the most disturbing aspect of this technological influence is the widespread availability and consumption, of course, of pornography. And just when you thought things like the rise of adult creators on OnlyFans couldn't get any worse, well, OpenAI announces that adult users will be now able to use the ChatGPT to create erotic content. It seriously becomes so accessible that it becomes a hard vice to avoid if you're a man who finds himself out of work, desperate for acceptance, and no accountability. So let me just say this before we move on. If that is you, right? If you are struggling with pornography, I'm going to leave a link down below, not sponsored or anything, but I think it can help you. At least start on a journey to help you rid yourself of something that only weakens you as a man. It will destroy your life. But I truly believe that the rise of pornography is a societal poison silently dismantling marriages and families and the very ability of men to form healthy relationships, one search at a time. These statistics are horrifying. Pornography use is so widespread that when one group of researchers sought to conduct a study of its effects, they were actually unable to find enough men in their 20s who would not watch porn to form a control group. So think about that. It is nearly universal among young men. According to some estimates, Gen Z boys are exposed on average at the age of 9 years old. This is predatory. Nearly 80% of children between 12 and 17 have already seen pornography unintentionally. TikTok, a Chinese-owned company, has been found to push sexually explicit ads to teen users as young as 13. And boys are becoming addicted to online pornography before their brains and capacity for self-control are even fully developed. This is so incredibly dangerous. Studies show links between porn and high stress, social anxiety, depression, aggressiveness, and poor self-esteem. It changes men's perception of what is normal and rewires their brains, causing them to seek more and more novel content rather than a relationship with a real woman. As one expert puts it, the brain's reward system, meant for real intimacy, gets reprogrammed to seek out porn instead. So this digital landscape is creating a friendship recession among men, with 15% of men reporting having no close friends. A social finesse, the ability to interact face-to-face and form genuine connections, is a skill that requires practice, and it's being eroded by the virtual world. Like dating apps, for all their promised convenience, have become well-documented disasters, turning people into commodities, fostering like unrealistic standards and making genuine connection almost impossible. It breeds a culture actually where everyone is toxic, where men who try to introduce themselves to a woman outside of an app are often perceived as creepy. And the result, well, many young men are left without relationships, struggling to connect. Women find themselves without eligible partners who meet their desired levels of education and success. This tech onslaught is feeding loneliness, anxiety, and a profound lack of purpose, further contributing to the civilization sadness that hangs heavy over our society. And so for the dads and mums watching right now, I want you to think about the impact on your sons for a moment, your grandsons or the young men in your life. Do you feel they are struggling with the lack of purpose? How do you think they are dealing with this world that constantly tells them their natural instincts are toxic? Are they confused about their identity, constantly bombarded by contradictory messages about masculinity? Are they retreating into virtual worlds, numbing themselves with endless screen time or porn? Are they unable to form real, deep connections? Are they feeling that deep, civilizational sadness? That sense of dread about the future, wondering if there's even a place for them. Think about the impact on your husbands, your wives watching, or your fathers and brothers. Are they silently battling despair, feeling unneeded in a society that increasingly devalues their contributions, both in the home and in the workforce? Are they struggling to find meaningful work to provide for their families, or to be the moral and spiritual anchors they're called to be? Are they caught, in the trap of pornography, slowly eroding intimacy and trust in their important relationships? The economic disengagement we discussed, the mental health crisis, these are not distant problems. They are impacting the men you know, the men you love. And what about the impact on families and communities? When men disengage, when they lack purpose, when they're told their contributions are unnecessary, it weakens the entire social fabric. Fatherless homes are a direct consequence, creating a ripple effect of negative outcomes for children, particularly boys. When men are absent, who will teach boys how to channel their energy, how to take risks, how to stand up for what is right? When men are silent, who will protect those who need it? Now, I do want to offer some advice if I can. The only way any of this changes is firstly if you recognize that we need men to be men. Now, you might have been raised different, taught different, heard different in the media. Maybe your friends groups are a bit more left-leaning, which means these beliefs are dismissed. But after everything we have just covered, maybe you're realizing far out, like, we actually need men to be men. Not fake men, not over-feminized men, not men that care more about fashion than they do about contributing to their community. I'm talking about the men that would go to war, like for you, in real life, not a video game. Men that predominantly operate with a belief that is their call and duty to give to society so that women and children can receive. First and foremost, recognize this. It starts with us, the individuals, the fathers, the mentors, the men themselves. For boys and young men, I would say this: you must actively seek purpose for your life. The world will not hand it to you. In fact, it will actively try to strip it away. Engage in rigorous physical activity. Pursue vocational skills and learn to master something difficult. Jordan Peterson, who has helped millions of young men, often offers simple yet profound advice. Clean your room, take responsibility, articulate your goals. This is not rocket science. It's about discipline, competence, and taking ownership for your life. Seek out mentors, older, wiser men who embody the kind of strength and virtue that you aspire to. Don't be afraid to be assertive, to challenge yourself, and to embrace the adventure of life. Reject the lure of easy dopamine hits from screens and pornography. Prioritize real-world interaction, even when it's uncomfortable. Cultivate genuine relationships and friendships with other men who will challenge you and hold you accountable. Now, for husbands and fathers, can I say this? A man should provide, protect, and put others first. That means taking responsibility for those under your care, your family, your community, and of course, your friends. It means standing firm when it's hard, leading when it's really uncomfortable, and sacrificing, especially when it's inconvenient or costly. That is what sacrifice is. A man should be capable of fighting for what he believes while measured and calm in his response. He should lead with convictions and not feelings. He should be honorable, honest, integrous, and courageous. If you are privileged to be a father, your presence is indispensable. Lead in love, protect, and provide for your families. This means being actively involved in your children's lives, especially your sons. Wrestle with your sons when they are young. Teach them to channel their energy, right? To take calculated risk and to stand up for themselves. Be a visible, strong, and consistent male who's a role model. Resist the societal narrative that tells you that your role is interchangeable or unnecessary. I mentioned this in the War on Family video, right? That the convicted pedophile Jack Reynolds said he deliberately avoided targeting families with strong, involved fathers. Dads, your spiritual strength and healthy masculinity are a shield of protection for your family. So this also means, as a man, dying to your flesh, rejecting the poison of pornography that erodes intimacy and trust in your marriage. Get help if you need it. Be intentional in your relationships with your wife and your kids. Be the spiritual and moral anchor your family desperately needs. Your sons are watching you. They will imitate what they see. I don't say this as someone who is claiming to be the perfect version of a man. Far from it. But I know that fighting daily to operate in these standards is what makes us the best version of ourselves. And also, a shout out to older men who might have tapped out, talking to the uncles, the granddads, who still actually have something to give. We need you more than ever to step up and be intentional with mentoring the younger generation. It's not about just sharing advice. It's actually about walking alongside them, showing them what virtuous manhood looks like through your actions. And it is important probably at this point to say this, right? Because we've been through a lot in this video. If you feel like you have basically failed in every area so far, good. That feeling that you have, that means there is conviction in you. It means you're ready to recreate yourself today, literally. And you're going to be fulfilled when you do it. One of the greatest things about the journey of life, as long as you are breathing, we get to grow and change. So do it now without worrying what anyone else thinks. And at the same time, as we step up collectively as men, our culture and system must also support strong families and healthy masculinity. So those who want to outwork this on a Political front, right? Here's what we need. We need to support families through real policy. That means like promoting school choices so parents, not the government, decide how their kids are educated. Encourage classical education that teaches truth, virtue, and discipline, not ideology. Got to be reform colleges and universities to end this one-sided culture that demonizes masculinity. Bring back pride in skilled work. Expand vocational and apprenticeship programs. Give men who aren't chasing a degree real pathways to dignified, well-paid work. Protect our kids from tech overreach. Maybe don't give them a phone at such an early age. Watch what they're looking at online. Change the culture around men and fatherhood. Restore positive portrayals of men in the media. Celebrate fathers who are strong, reliable, and sacrificial. And push back against the narrative that paints men as villains. The attack on men really is an attack on God's design, a rebellion against the natural order that he established. God created men to be providers, protectors, and leaders within their families and communities. Scripture makes that clear. True manhood is modeled perfectly in Jesus Christ, tough yet tender, humble yet strong, using his strength not for himself but in service to others. A godly man follows that example, using his power and discipline for the good of those around him, physically, morally, intellectually, and spiritually. And modern feminism has twisted this truth, turning it into a war on fatherhood and family. It's tried to redefine what it means to be a man, demonizing the very strength God gave men to build, protect, and lead. And to tie into that, here's what I know. The insidious ideology has unfortunately also seeped into the church itself. And many pulpits have abandoned their clear biblical teaching on male leadership and men's God-given roles, replacing it with messages that sound more like pop psychology than the Word of God. And when the church falters, when it fails to disciple men in biblical masculinity, when it becomes feminized in its approach, right, it leaves men without a spiritual compass, without a place to turn for truth about their purpose. This is a critical failure because it leaves men vulnerable to the despair and confusion that is rampant in the wider culture. Now, Dr. Nancy Pearcey highlights studies that have the most important factor in male happiness and health is not fame, wealth, or professional achievements. Overwhelmingly, the key factor is close, loving relationships. Men were created for relationship to establish family. To be a committed husband and father does not contradict men's authentic nature, but fulfills it. Think back to what we discussed in previous shows about, America returning to God. We talked about the fundamental choice between Christ and chaos. When Christianity and its values are chosen and allowed to flourish in society, the fruit is obvious. Stronger families, more connected communities, a sense of hope and purpose. But what happens when Christianity is pushed out? When God's design for men is rejected, you don't get more freedom, you don't get more harmony, you get loneliness and depression, more fatherless homes, more division, and more despair and confusion. You get the staggering statistics we've discussed today. Suicide as the second leading cause of death for men under 45. Millions checked out of the workforce, and a generation hooked on pornography and cut off from the real relationships. It fills the cracks in society, making families weaker, communities less connected, and young men restless, lost, and searching desperately for meaning. The truth is, as we land this plane, it's been a lot, I know, thanks for staying with me, but men were created with a purpose: to lead, protect, provide, to bring strength and unique qualities to the family and community. We are not called to selfishness. We aren't called to get what's mine. I'll say it again, the life of a man should be one of self-sacrifice, not self-preservation. Further to that, everything you will see through progressive media is that men and women are interchangeable. They can transition to be one another. They tell you that this version of a masculine man is bad while celebrating the masculinity of a lesbian with a mohawk. They only celebrate a man if he started as a woman and transitioned to be a man. Think how wild that is. Well, I think we've covered most of it. My encouragement to young men, older men, and whoever is watching: the most fulfillment you will have as a man is to operate in the purpose, duty, and character of a real man. Be honorable, honest, integrous, and courageous. Provide for and protect those that are around you. Well, thanks for watching. I appreciate the fact that you made it all the way to here and you're still listening to me talk. Go ahead, subscribe, share this video to a young man, an old man, a wife, someone, because anyone who cares about the future of our society needs to understand about the war on men. Go ahead and watch the next video, which is coming very shortly. The war on family, and then more to come, the war on women, the war on marriages, and the war on children. I hope you enjoy all of them. Thanks again for watching. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.